Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. We've got a great episode with you today and something you're going to want to tune in about. We're going to be talking about how to streamline your appraisal process, and I know every appraiser is going to want to hear about that. Let's welcome in Hal Humphreys, our host today. Hal, how are you doing?
I'm good. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing just great. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here, as always.
Well, our guest today is Tim Lillis from Upward Appraisal. Tim, why don't I welcome you in?
Thanks, Jim. Good to see you,
Tim.
Hal.
Thanks
for having me.
us.
Hey, Tim, how you doing today?
It's good to be here. I'm doing just great. Thanks for having me.
Good. All right. Well, Tim, do me a favor and kind of give me some of your background in the appraisal business.
Sure. So I consider myself to be a very unlikely appraiser. I mean, the fact that I got into this industry in the first place is just kind of wild. I don't have any relatives in the real estate sphere, and it was really not on my radar at all. In fact, at heart, I'm a musician, and I've always been a musician. I grew up playing music, and if you can believe this, I had a family band growing up. My brother and my cousin and I had a band. We released an entire album of music. We toured all around New England playing music. I ended up going to music school. I studied music in college. So, I mean, this was my thing, right? And so when I got out of music school, this was around 2009, I was floating around and a buddy called me and he said, "Hey, Tim, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing great. I have no money, but I'm doing great." And he said, "Okay, we could change that. Do you want to become a real estate appraiser?" And I immediately said, "No. Why would I become a real estate appraiser? That doesn't make any sense to me." But I think one of the reasons that I did decide to become a real estate appraiser is because I kind of have this mindset whenever an opportunity comes my way, even if it seems like it's an immediate no, I always ask the question, how can I say yes to this? And that might seem like I'm trying to find a way to say yes to everything, but that's not it at all. If anything, I would say try to say no as much as possible, right? Because we only want to pick the things that really make sense for us. But by framing it this way, how can I say yes to this? It kind of allows me to step back and really parse out, well, what would it take for this to work for me? And so I stepped back for a second and I said, "All right, buddy, tell me a little bit more about appraising." And I came to learn that appraising is an amazing profession. I mean, you get to choose your own hours, you're your own boss. If you structure your business correctly, it can be very lucrative. And all of those things sounded great to me at the time. They still sound great to me now, so I'm still excited to be an appraiser. And it allowed me to do appraisal and also continue my music career, which was really important to me then and is still important to me now.
So you're still playing shows then?
Absolutely. Yeah. I met my wife playing music and we do a lot together. We have a band and we play out every weekend. So it's still very much a big part of my life.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind my asking, where'd you go to music school?
Oh, I went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Okay. I've got a couple of friends. I live in Nashville, which as everybody knows is Music City, USA, and I've got several friends that went to Berklee. Great school up there. Well, that's fascinating. The notion of how can I say yes to this? The flip side of that equation is when I'm talking to people about new opportunities, my attitude is always they can't say yes unless I give them a chance to say no. I think the ability to look at opportunities from both sides of the coin is really important. And if you can get to a yes, if you can get your head around a thing and say, yeah, that works for me, you open yourself up to so many possibilities. And I'm really impressed that that's how you came into this business, because most of us, myself included, came to it because my father was an appraiser.
Sure, absolutely. And that's how my friend had gotten into it as well. And his father had been an appraiser since the 80s. and he ended up becoming my mentor. And it was definitely one of the best decisions I've made. I mean, I packed up and I moved to Connecticut and I started appraising. And let me tell you, appraising in Connecticut, it was just so fascinating. And it was such a great place to learn how to appraise because every single week I had a different kind of property on my desk. Everything from, houses built in the 1600s where you go up into the attic and you can look at the ceiling beams and people have etched in their names from 400 years ago
Yeah.
to brand new construction, waterfront, acreage, everything. And so every week was like an exciting new challenge. Very much different from where I live now, which is Southern California. I mean, there's still a lot of diversity, but it's a completely different landscape. And I had a lot to learn, even after being an appraiser for many years coming here. Totally different landscape. So I got to learn a whole bunch of new skills when I came out here.
I love it. And, when I think of Southern California specifically, I think of that show Weeds, and the opening song
Yep.
of little houses on the hillside, little houses made of ticky tacky, and they all look just the same. And for my folks in California, I know that's not exactly true. But when you're looking at homes in Connecticut or even anywhere on the Eastern Seaboard or even in Nashville, there's no such thing as a cookie cutter house in certain areas of Nashville. And I'm sure up in Connecticut, you had the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are tract neighborhoods, but like I said, the state is so diverse and it's so kind of neighborhood centric. I mean, you go to a different town or a different county and it's a completely different landscape.
Right.
And and that's what I thought life as an appraiser was. I thought, I mean, it was pretty difficult learning that way. I really enjoyed it, but I thought, wow, we have to work really hard to get a reasonable value. I mean, every day is a different assignment. So I always just had a lot of respect for the industry, and I still do, and I'm still just so happy and fortunate to have found this profession that's really meaningful.
I love it. And I think that notion that you're talking about of, my work focuses on one-off oddball properties, and I am exactly the opposite of some appraisers that are looking at ways to streamline the process. I think that's what we're going to get into after the break, but let's take a real quick break and give a shout out to one of our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Since 1978, LIA Administrators and Insurance Services has been offering E&O insurance to valuation professionals. LIA applies superior customer service, exceptional liability education from Peter Christensen, and unparalleled claim defense managed by Claudia Gaglioni. LIA offers errors and omissions, commercial bonds, general liability, cyber liability, and real estate agents and brokers E&O. Visit liability.com or call 800 334 0652.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. I'm joined today by Tim Lillis, appraiser out in California. And we're talking today about appraisal modernization. We've just talked a little bit with Tim about his experience and his history in the appraisal business. Tim, it sounds like you came into this business at quite possibly one of the worst times to get into the appraisal business, 2008, 2009. I mean, how do you build a successful business when things are going in the tank like that?
Well, I think a big part of it is ignorance is bliss, because I didn't know that was the industry that I was getting into, and maybe that was a good thing. But part of what happened to me is I got into the industry, and I got used to kind of how things were. And I remember the day when everything kind of changed for me, which is I was working and one of our clients started sending us some desktop work. And it was work where they were trying to keep an eye on some of their properties that might be going into foreclosure. And this type of product, I don't remember exactly what the fee was on it, but it might have been like $90 or $100 or something like that. And so this thing comes across my desk, and my immediate reaction is, I can't do this. How can I make this work? I'm used to seeing fees 3, 4, 5, 6 times this. And so my immediate thought was, no, I can't do this. But then I thought, okay, well, hold on. Like, how can I say yes to this? Is there a step that I could take to make this work for me? And I had been reading The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, very popular book. I wasn't looking to work 4 hours a week, but there were a lot of interesting tidbits in that book. And one of them was something that was pretty much unknown at this point, which was working with a virtual assistant. And so I really got into this, and I thought, oh my gosh, this can completely change things. And with this desktop assignment, it really kind of put me over the edge, because this was an assignment where it was there was no inspection, and it was all data entry and analysis. And it just made me think, there's so much in here that I don't need to be doing. There's so much in here that I can delegate. And but I still couldn't get over the fact that the fee seemed so low. And so I had to change my thinking on that. And so instead of thinking of it as a fee per assignment basis, I started thinking of myself, what is my hourly rate? What am I making per hour when I do these kind of assignments? Is that better than the work that I'm doing right now? And I don't remember the exact figures. Maybe I was making $50 or $60 an hour at that point. And that was pretty good for me. It's just a few years out of college, I felt pretty good about that. But when I started to take on this work, and I, went through all my processes, created a template for it, taught my assistant how to do all of the things that she could do, and I did 10 or 20 of these. When I looked at the numbers, it would take me between 45 minutes and an hour and a half to complete one of these, depending on the complexity. But the majority of them were falling in around an hour or a little bit more than an hour. So I discovered all of a sudden I have raised my hourly rate by $30 or $40. And this is when I started to discover I can actually build a business here. This doesn't have to just be my job. This can be an actual business. So that was kind of my first step into modernizing my business, was bringing on a virtual assistant.
And let's just take a break here and tell me what does people are hearing all this news about appraisal modernization. I know the GSEs have an idea of what that means. I know appraisers have an idea of what that means. But what is appraisal modernization, just generally speaking?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a lot of different answers to that, depending on which angle you go at it. But when I think about it, well, first of all, I'm not going to say that you need to modernize your business because that's the direction that the industry is going and it's a way to stay very competitive. I don't want to say all that because that's not sexy at all and nobody wants to hear that. So let's frame it this way. If you're thinking about modernizing your business, there are some really good perks to going down that path. Obviously, one of them is you can make more money. You can earn more if you use, the technology and are kind of open to some of these new products that are coming out. But also, and this is the most important thing to me, which is getting some of my time back. And don't get me wrong, I love my job, but I only want to spend as much time as I need to working on things because there's so many other things that I want to do with my life. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to travel. And I know that a lot of appraisers feel the same way. We work very hard. And I think that there's a way for us to keep working hard, but getting some of that time back. So modernization to me is all about that idea. And the way that I structure my business and the way that I think about my business is not how can I build an appraisal empire? How can I make $500,000 this year? How can I build this team of appraisers that, work under me? I don't want any of that. For me personally, I don't want all that overhead. I don't want all that headache. I want to create a more streamlined, like a lean machine that works in any environment. I can pivot easily when the industry pivots, and I don't have a lot to worry about, and I can get back to the things that are really important to me. So that's what appraisal modernization means to me.
I love it. And we're fortunate, I think, to be in a time where there are so many new tools available and becoming available to appraisers that can. Most appraisers, like you, like myself, are kind of solo operators. We're out there doing our thing. Maybe we have an assistant or a virtual assistant, but we don't want. One of the reasons we like being appraisers for a lot of us is we don't like being told what to do. We like to set our own schedule. We don't want to manage a whole staff of 85 appraisers. We want to do our thing. And there's some really interesting tools coming out. So when we come back from this break, we'll talk about specifics of how to streamline your process and how to use some of these new tools. Till then, let's take a real quick shout out to one of our sponsors.
The Appraisal Institute recently launched its Instagram page, AI's latest presence on social media, joining Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the Face Value podcast. Visit and follow AI's Instagram page for another way to access valuation news and association updates. www.instagram.com/appraisalinstitute.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Hal Humphreys. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzz. I'm joined today by Tim Lillis. Am I saying that right, Tim?
You're saying that right. Thank you, Hal.
Okay. So let's talk about actually streamlining your business. So we've made it clear that we're not telling appraisers you've got to modernize, you've got to do all these things, you have to do these things. We're saying this is an opportunity that if you choose to avail yourself of, you can. So let's talk about streamlining your business. How do you do that?
Well, I would say that the tools that you use are the first component of this. So the modernization, whatever that means, we don't have to use the word modernization. We can just call it, how to make your business a little bit lighter, a little bit more, streamlined. So one of the things that I think about is obviously how can we use all this new tech to make our operations more streamlined? But if we go to kind of the basics of it, or go to like the fundamental of streamlining any kind of business, I would say step one for me, especially like you said, for solo operators like us, I can't say this enough. Having an assistant is so huge in that streamlining process, because with that assistant, you can create an environment where you are only doing what you have to do. You can only do what you are specialized to do. As appraisers, we are so highly specialized, and I'm always amazed at how specialized we really are. Especially when I go out and I'm talking with real estate professionals, just what we have to do, how we have to prove everything. It's so highly specialized. So what we want to do is focus on those things that only we can do. There are things that only I can do as the appraiser in the shop. And so after the assistant, the next thing I always think about is, what are my standard operating procedures? What are the procedures in my business from order acceptance to order submission? What are all of those steps, and which one of those do I have to do? Nobody else can do those steps. Everything else should be done by somebody else. That's how I structure my business.
I think that's brilliant. And I want to point out that a lot of appraisers, myself included for years, never gave a thought to what the process was. You get an order, you start working on it, you do the thing, and you just move on to the next one. You get an order, you start working on it, and no real thought to the process. I think the first step in streamlining is taking a breath and figuring out what the process is. And like you said, identifying the things that you must do and what you can hand off to someone else. I think that's a great starting place. So continue.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I saw just recently over the past couple of years, I had my house appraised a few times for various reasons. I had 3 appraisers come through my house, and all 3 appraisers did a great job on the report. I was very happy with their work. But all 3 of them had something else in common, which is that they all came to my house with paper, a clipboard, a pencil, a digital camera, and a tape measure. And I sat all three of them down at the end of the inspection. And I said, hey, listen, I really appreciate you coming here. I'm an appraiser too, so I get everything that you're dealing with. I want to just tell you one thing that's going to save you a half hour to maybe even an hour. Maybe this could possibly save you an entire hour per report, is if you just use your phone or use a tablet, get a laser measure, because I'm thinking about just the digital camera. Let's just focus on that for a second. You have to take the picture. You have to download it to your computer. You have to then copy paste it into your report. Then you have to label what that picture is. You have a 4-step process here that can be done in 1 step during the inspection. That right there can save you time. And if we're talking about saving time, saving a half hour per report is so powerful. I mean, just for simple math, let's say you do 10 orders a week, you work 48 weeks a year, you get a month off every year. And so you're doing 480 appraisals. That means if you can save a half hour per report, that's 240 hours. That's 10 days of extra time just by using mobile, just by going fully mobile.
So you get the chance to either A, take on a little bit more work, or B, take a month and a half off.
You can make that decision. Yeah. And this is kind of all about lifestyle design in a way. It opens up possibilities where it's not all of a sudden, it's not just about your business, because now your business is running so efficiently that you have these other choices to make. Oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll take a 4-day weekend, or maybe I'll take some more orders and make some more money and save up for that thing that I really want, or my child's college, which is what I'm saving for. So, right. You know, there's all sorts of things, all sorts of possibilities that open up. So just by taking 1 step.
The first step of all right, so let's say you've been working with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and we had a class here in Nashville yesterday. We had about, 30 people in the class, and of the 30 people, I would say 25 plus of them still use a clipboard and paper. And part of the discussion of the class was, dude, take a tablet, take your phone. I personally prefer to use the phone. It's small, it's easy. You can take all your photographs with it. You're used to the form factor. And try it 10 times. Just make yourself use it on 10 inspections. After that, if it doesn't work for you, fine. But every time we give people that advice, they come back and like, the first 3 times I hated it. The next couple times is like, okay. And then by the end of the 10th one, I'm like, yeah, I'm never going back to
paper. Well, that's great. And what I always tell appraisers is you don't have to do something big. Just do one thing. It can be something really small. Here's a really small, and this might seem completely ridiculous, but the really small things add up in your business. I use this app. It's just always open on my computer. It's just a percentage calculator. It tells me the percentage change or the percentage difference. And I could easily type that into my calculator, right? I can easily do the math, but this makes it so that I just put the numbers in, push one button, and it gives me different values to work with. Now, this, what does this save me? It might save me 10 seconds, but what it really does is it allows my mind to not shift to another task and to stay on what I'm doing. We've all heard in our business seminars and things like that, that distractions, even 10-second distraction can make you a half hour delayed in your process. It gets your mind out of what you're doing. So something really small like that, having just another tool, try out a new tool like that to see what happens. I love spam call blockers. I have a few on my phone. So my phone rarely ever rings with spam calls. That's just another distraction. That might not be specific to appraisals, but I'll tell you, it's going to make your life a lot better.
Yeah.
When we talk about appraisal tools, I mean, there are so many out there that we can talk about. I love Spark. This is a great program by Choice Valuation. I could talk about that forever. Just please, everyone, go check that out. If you're looking for adjustment support, check out Synapse. There's so many of these programs that can help us streamline. And as an added benefit, they help you build a more robust appraisal report and work file. I do quite a bit of review work, and I have to tell you, 9 times out of 10, when I'm reviewing an appraisal, there are no support for the adjustments written in the report. Now, I assume that the appraiser has it in their work file, which is great, but I really feel that having it in your report is, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's not an option, because it's something that allows the reader to understand what you did. And I guarantee if you put all of that commentary, one of those apps that I was talking about gives you commentary that just goes right into the report. It just gives you all of these facts and figures and paragraphs written out that just pop right into your report. Immediately, your report is 10 times more robust, so much more unlikely that you're going to get a revision request or that it's going to come back to you down the line. And it doesn't take any time to use this tool. Right. It's an amazing piece of technology. But like I said before, keep it simple. Do one thing, just one thing every week, and you'll get there.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let me ask you this. If somebody wanted to learn more about your process and how you've streamlined your business, and there are a lot of appraisers out there that may drop in and watch us and think, I've been meaning to do that. That sounds really interesting, but how do I even start? How would they find out more about you and what it is you do?
So my company is called Upward Appraisal, and I'm in California. So everything that I do is under Upward Appraisal CA. So you can find my website, upwardappraisalca.com. It has all my contact info on there. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Any one of those sources you can go to. Please feel free to reach out to me directly. Leave some comments on this video. I'm more than happy to share. I've been in this business for 14 years, and so I've seen a few things, and I am really interested in helping appraisers get their time back, because this is something that it's beyond business. This is a life thing, and we all know how precious life is. And if there's one thing that I could say maybe to get people started right now, is think about your business. What would your business look like if everything was easy? This is another thing that I learned from Tim Ferriss. What would it look like if everything were easy? Now, when you really do that thought experiment and you start taking apart, okay, well, I wake up in the morning, when I open up my laptop, what would that look like? It's going to be different for everybody. I'll just give you a quick example of what it might look like for me, just to kind of get the juices flowing. I open up my laptop, and imagine you open up your laptop, and instead of seeing a bunch of emails, a bunch of clients that you have to update, all you see is a list of tasks that you have to do that day. All of your emails have been taken care of. All of your client updates have been taken care of. This list just says, all right, you're going to open up this report, reconcile. This report needs to be reconciled. You have 2 inspections this afternoon. Those inspections have already been scheduled for you. The comparables that you need to take pictures of have driving directions, so you take them in the right order so that you get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And so you go into the report, your first report of the day. It's already 85% complete. All you have to do is do your adjustments, reconcile, sign it, send it in, go to your inspections, drive. You're home by 2 o'clock. And now you can do what you want for the rest of your day. Maybe that's what it looks like if it's easy. By the way, when you were out inspecting, your assistant was answering emails, was accepting orders for you, was updating your clients, so that when you got back into the office, oh, you have 2 new orders. Amazing. And they've already been categorized. I mean, I could go on, but what would it look like if things were easy? And then start backing into that process. What would I need to build to get that started? I really think that the appraisal industry is still a great place to be. I plan on being here for a long time. But if you're thinking about, I want to be in this industry for another 5 or 10 years, let's say, do you want those 10 years to be the best years of your career? Because they could be.
Yeah.
I really think that there's a lot going on in this industry. I know that there's a lot of unease, but I think that there's a lot of amazing things going on that we can grab onto right now. So I'm happy to share more about that. Please reach out to me. If anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer.
I love it. I love it. Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. What an interesting chat. And I think, at the end of the day, I'm drinking what you're pouring.
Well, thank you so much, Hal. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'm a big fan, and I appreciate you having me today.
Well, thank you. Let's get Jim Morrison back on the line. Jim, how you doing? Do we have, by chance, an anonymous appraiser question?
Yes, we do. And, it kind of dovetails with what we've been talking about. And based on Tim's conversation, I kind of see where he's going to end up with this. But let's ask and see. So the question is, I'm thinking of taking on a trainee, but I'm worried about them just leaving and becoming competition. Would I be better off hiring a staff person to help me with paperwork, or taking that trainee that can help with everything once I get them trained up?
I'm going to hop in real quick and just give my answer. Number one, trainees. I know a lot of appraisers have difficulty with the notion of hiring a trainee. I'm training my competition. Well, here's the thing. If you treat a trainee with respect and you pay them well and you train them well, they're not going to leave you right away, number one. And number two, there's plenty of room out there for all of us and more appraisers. We need new appraisers in the business, but you can gain a lot from a trainee. Paul Rill over in South Carolina is working with us on a course over at Appraiser Learning on how to hire and engage with trainees in a way that your business can earn money from the trainees. So I think it's a great idea to bring in trainees. Tim, your thoughts?
I agree with what you're saying, Hal, wholeheartedly. I think that if you're going to bring in a trainee, if you're worried that they're going to leave, ask yourself, well, how can I make them stay? If you make their life so incredible, if you can build a business around them that's so incredible that they won't want to leave, then they won't. I mean, the amount of people that get into any kind of business and then want to become business owners, a lot of people don't necessarily want that. And just because you have a business doesn't mean that everybody wants a business. But again, if you make this person's life amazing, and this goes for if you're going to hire an assistant. Now, it's the same thing. I try to make my assistant's life as amazing as possible. I treat my assistant like gold because they are gold. People that work within your business, they are so important. So I think that if you treat them well, there's a chance that they won't leave. If they do, like Hal said, that's okay. I mean, yeah, we definitely need more appraisers. Appraisers are retiring every single day of the week. But that wouldn't be my first fear, I guess, when thinking about hiring a trainee. Whether you hire a trainee or you hire an assistant, that really depends on what kind of business you want to build. Yeah. So maybe think a little bit about what do you want your business to look like? And that might be the first question I would ask when thinking about hiring a trainee.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the notion of a lot of appraisers, I would say the overwhelming majority of appraisers are solo operators out there doing the work. Maybe they've got an office above the garage or in the basement or a small office space. They're just working by themselves. They got 3 screens and a PC and they're doing their thing. Maybe hiring a trainee is not for you, and that's okay. But think about the notion of, all right, so you're presented with a trainee or an assistant. If you can get a good virtual assistant and train them how to do the things that you don't have to do, you can save yourself so much time and so much effort. You do that. And then let's take it on a little bit further down the road. Somebody comes to you and they say, I've completed my qualifying education. I'm looking for a mentor. I want to learn about this business. Not only have I done my qualifying education, but I've taken several classes from appraisery learning to learn more about the business, not just valuation theory. You see this person is really interested in becoming an appraiser. How cool would it be to bring in a trainee and let them learn the nuts and bolts of valuation by letting the assistant that you've been working with for a couple of years do the upfront stuff and having that trainee focus on valuation issues. And you can really work with them on valuation issues and not have to worry about, I don't know, filling out the 1004 form. You know what I'm saying? Work with them on actual valuation theory. I think that could be a good marriage of those two ideas.
Absolutely. I mean, and going down this road opens up so many opportunities. If you're talking about having them work in a specific part of your business and having the trainee be in on it, filling in the gaps so that you don't have to. Another thing to think about is how much could you potentially learn from that person? Because assumedly, somebody who's just getting into the industry, they might be really up on technology just because they're a person who's freshly out of college. They're a young person. They grew up with all of this stuff. Maybe they're going to look at it and see like, oh, I know this app that does this thing. This might be helpful. You just never know who you're bringing in through your doors. It could be something that brings a huge amount of value to your business, and it's an unseen at this time.
That trainee comes in the door and they show you that one thing a week that's going to save you a couple of minutes per report just because you haven't considered downloading whatever app it is they show you.
Sure. Yeah, it could be something like that. But just the idea that there could be more to be gained from a person than just whatever you're thinking they're going to do in your business. You never know.
I love it. Tim, again, thank you for taking the time to do this. What a fascinating chat. Jim Morrison, do we have anything else we need to cover today?
No, that's all, Tim. We really appreciate your time. Looking forward to meeting you next time we're in California. Maybe we'll see you in August in Valuation Expo in Vegas. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, we would love to see you at Val Expo if you get a chance. Come out there and join us. For Jim Morrison and Tim Lillis, I'm Hal Humphreys. That is your Appraisal Buzzcast. We'll see you next week.